Minnesota, where hundreds of thousands of Somalians are ripping off our country and ripping apart that once great state. Billions of dollars are lost, and gangs of Somalians come from a country that doesn't even have a government, no laws, no water, no military, no nothing. As their representatives in our country preach to us about our Constitution and how our country is no good. We're not going to put up with these kind of assaults on law and order by people who shouldn't even be in our country. We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
I'm in a town where we have a lot of people who are refugees who have come, some from Somalia, some from Bosnia. I've never heard one of them say that America's a terrible place or be unappreciative of our country. Most of them are thankful. I've met people who have come here from behind the Iron Curtain that got away from communism. They're some of the best Americans we have because they really appreciate how great our country is. And then I hear Representative Omar say, "Oh, America's a terrible place. I'd love there to be justice, and there's no justice here." It's like, well, she came here and we fed her, we clothed her, she got welfare, she got school, she got health care, and then lo and behold, she has the honor of actually winning a seat in Congress, and she says we're a terrible country. I think that's about as ungrateful as you can get. And so while I'm not saying we forcibly send her anywhere, I'm willing to contribute to buy her a ticket to go visit Somalia, and I think she could look and maybe learn a little bit about the disaster that is Somalia, that has no capitalism, has no God-given rights guaranteed in a constitution, and has about 7 different tribes that have been fighting each other for the last 40 years. And then maybe after she's visited Somalia for a while, she might come back and appreciate America more.
So Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, both progressive Democrats, reportedly received hefty campaign donations from players in a massive scheme to defraud the federal government. A Minneapolis-based nonprofit called Feeding Our Future received about $197.9 million to provide meals to hungry children adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. But now an FBI investigation, which included a raid of the nonprofit's headquarters, revealed that essentially none of the money went to feeding kids. Instead, the FBI alleges Feeding Our Future conspired with local businesses within Minneapolis's East African immigrant community to falsify records and to move the money to private accounts. One of the key players in the scheme is Safari Restaurant, a popular Somali eatery in South Minneapolis, which claims on its website to be the only African cuisine in Minnesota. The restaurant was reimbursed $15 million. It says it spent serving 5,000 meals a day to children between May and November of the year 2020. But in reality, Safari Restaurant's owners were taking a page out of BLM's book and purchasing expensive homes, including a $2.8 million Minneapolis mansion and a $1 million home in suburban Plymouth, Minnesota. Now, Safari Restaurant is a significant donor to Ilhan Omar's campaign, and the restaurant has hosted Omar events such as this election night bash back in 2018 for midterms.
People in this case not only took tens of millions of dollars, but laundered much of it abroad and sent much of it to Kenya, among other things. They were building an entire apartment building in Nairobi. So the $50 million that they took, most of that's in addition to the $250 million that's commonly cited as the total loss amount in this case. So the total loss in this case is well in excess of $300 million and possibly in excess of $400 million.
Now, the reason for that, the $250 million number accounts for the fraud that was run through the nonprofit sponsor called Feeding Our Future. But Farah's group worked with a different sponsor called Partners in Nutrition. No one from Partners has been charged yet. Thompson says they're still investigating.
That was a situation which was really heartbreaking. Folks that we believed were serving honorably the community. Anytime folks abuse the system fraudulently, especially when it comes to children, we need to stand against that. I don't think at that time we knew that they were under investigation, and folks just want their leaders to stand up for the everyday person.
I'm not an attorney. I know that in my time here, there's never been a state agency had a contempt of court filed. So we're nervous, we're rule followers, we're trying to get this right, but my gripe is not with the court, it's with, and again, that's the interpretation on this. I mean, that's what the lawyers all thought, that's what it meant.
At issue in this case was processing applications for Feeding Our Future sites, not payment. Still, Wall said today his administration interpreted the order as having to act on paying those funds. Republicans accuse the Education Department and the Attorney General of not doing more to stop the alleged fraud and are seeking more answers of the timeline of what led up to the indictments.
Hebo Dar is now the 71st person to be charged in the $250 million Feeding Our Future pandemic meal fraud case. Court records show she claimed to serve 1 million meals to children out of this office in a business center on East Hennepin Avenue and collected $2.4 million in taxpayer money. But federal investigators believe her meal site, Northside Wellness, was fake and that she only spent less than $2,000 on food. According to the criminal complaint, Dar's case included all the telltale signs of the sprawling fraud. She wrote checks to Hadith Ahmed, a Feeding Our Future employee who's already pleaded guilty and says checks like those were bribes. There are emails Dar sent to Amy Bach, the former executive director of Feeding Our Future, convicted by a jury this year, including meal count sheets the FBI says are fake. In those meal counts, the complaint says that by April 2021, Dar claimed to be serving about 40,000 meals to children every week. After Bach was convicted, it was unclear whether the feds intended to charge any additional suspects in the case. But late last week, the FBI raided a St. Paul nonprofit, New Vision Foundation, signaling they weren't finished. As news of that raid spread, prosecutors say Dar booked a flight to Dubai, set to leave 3 days later. The FBI arrested her at the airport before she could board. In court, the prosecutor said they informed Dar in April that she was one of the new targets of their investigation. They told the judge they believe she tried to escape, thinking charges are coming soon.
Well, the Congresswoman has not responded specifically as regards the Safari restaurant. However, her team did put out a very generic statement, painting in broad strokes, saying that they're aware that there's some corruption going on, referencing Feeding Our Future, and saying that they're concerned to see how this will develop, but no specifics.
So not even any kind of, hint that maybe they might be giving the money back at all?
No, there's been no indication that the Omar campaign will return the thousands of dollars it's received from Safari Restaurant this election cycle. Of course, these are all just allegations. The FBI has accused Safari Restaurant of stealing $15 million. Supposedly, Safari is a cash-flowing business, so maybe the money Ilhan got from them was clean, but $15 million is a lot to be accused of stealing by the FBI, and Omar has not addressed her ties to that restaurant specifically.
And also in the article, it talks about some of the shell companies, it appears, that I should say is alleged Safari Restaurant to have been creating to kind of hide some of the money, buying mansions and even some expensive vehicles as well, correct?
Absolutely. So the owners of Safari Restaurant, there are multiple, have purchased very expensive homes. As you mentioned, a $3 million house in Minneapolis, so basically $1 million house in Plymouth. They also purchased a pickup truck worth in excess of $70,000. They've been living large. I mean, this was a huge infusion of cash into the pockets of multiple scammers in the Minneapolis area. And Safari is just the tip of the iceberg. As you mentioned, there was over $190 million that was diffused, according to the FBI, mostly into the hands of scammers here in Minneapolis. So there's a lot of people who are eating really good, but unfortunately, those are not the hungry children.
I know, and just thinking about Minneapolis in general, I know a lot of money in Ilhan Omar's district, a lot of activists in the area. They've been sending a lot of money to other campaigns and races in the Seattle area as well in Washington, including to a woman who back in, I think it was around 2010 or so, she actually boarded a school bus full of middle school children and threatened to blow up and to bomb the bus. And when the kids started to run away, she made fun of them and mocked them for being afraid of her. And she was, talking about her Islamic faith and saying, "Oh, do you think I'm a terrorist just because I'm It was crazy, and yet now she's running for a local county position in the Seattle area, and some of the money her campaign's been getting is from the Minneapolis area. So we see this corruption and basically its tentacles all over this nation. So also in this article, it mentions the mayor of Minneapolis and some of his involvement. Talk to us about some of those ties as well.
Of course. So the FBI says that there are 6 people named in their search warrant that were allegedly in receipt of these stolen funds that also donated to Mayor Fry's campaign. 2 of those people are owners of Safari Restaurant, the corrupt restaurant that's also funneling money to Ilhan Omar. A third person, not at Safari Restaurant, but still in the Minneapolis nonprofit space, is named Abdiakar Muhammad. He runs an organization called Stigma Free. So Stigma Free is running basically, according to the FBI, the same same scam that Safari is running, where they're colluding with Feed Our Future to receive millions and millions of dollars and then funnel it for their own personal gain and some of the money, apparently, back into the pockets of the mayor in the form of campaign donations. What's interesting, though, is that Stigma Free was originally incorporated by a Minneapolis city councilman, Jamal Osman. There are no ties between Jamal Osman and the corruption, but it's very interesting that this organization was founded by somebody in city government, passed off to somebody else who is involved with city government, and then they stole funds and funneled it right back into city government. So it seems like over the last week or so since this story has broken, everywhere you look in Minneapolis, there are allegedly stolen funds, and it looks like the depth of this corruption is going to take months to fully uncover.
I know, and it's not like, Ilhan Omar and her campaign hasn't been accused in the past of, some funny business with some of their campaign money. For example, with some of her relationships in the past with her, with some of the people she was giving money to and getting donations from. So, this is perhaps old hat at this point. But when it comes to the FBI, do we know perhaps what comes next in their case?
Interestingly, no charges have been filed, but the home of the woman who controls Feeding Our Future, the organization at the center of this $190 million scam, her home was raided by, according to some reports, up to 200 law enforcement officers. The headquarters of her business were also raided by a sizable team of law enforcement officers. So while we haven't seen any charges, and the FBI has been relatively silent since the initial search warrant was disclosed to the public, it's very likely that we're going to see more movement in the future, and we'll keep reporting on that at Alpha News.
And if you could distill down perhaps some of the most surprising aspects or some of your biggest takeaways from the story, what would it be?
Well, the biggest takeaway for me, Alpha News is based here in Minneapolis, and the Minneapolis political life orbits around these nonprofits. I mean, Feeding Our Future is huge here in the state of Minnesota, in Minneapolis specifically. Everyone knows what Safari Restaurant is in local politics. Everybody knows about Stigma Free. I mean, these are the organizations that make local news every week for the supposedly good things they're doing. And to hear that they have stolen almost $200 million, according to the FBI, it's shocking. It's incredibly disruptive. And we're feeling the ripples, from these allegations in every corner of Minneapolis political life. The second takeaway is this is what happens when you rush these COVID aid programs. In Minnesota and the nation more broadly, we saw this huge push to, shut down schools, have masks, have all sorts of COVID measures. One of those measures was this spending program that wasn't oversought at all. And now the federal government's having to come back in and pick up the pieces after this rushed COVID program failed, to nobody's surprise. And this isn't the only COVID program that's failed in the Twin Cities area. St. Paul, the sister city to Minneapolis, recently had a man plead guilty to basically $900,000 of Paycheck Protection Program fraud. So it seems like every day we're uncovering more and more millions of dollars of COVID-related fraud here in Minneapolis, and it's reaching basically every progressive politician in the region.
Well, here in California, we're pretty much in the same boat. You're a blue city, we're a blue state. Same thing here. Billions and billions and billions of dollars get passed every year into budgets for example, the homeless crisis. And yet the homeless crisis only seems to get worse, and a lot more, bureaucrats get added to the staff payrolls. And of course, their wallet and their pocketbook keeps getting fatter and fatter while the crisis gets worse and worse. So we have a similar situation out here on the West Coast.
In my home state of Minnesota, dozens of hunger relief organizations are warning of the hungriest summer on record if the state doesn't convene a special session to combat hunger. At the beginning of the pandemic, I passed the Meals Act to let districts provide universal meals in the hope of preventing a massive hunger crisis. It worked. Over 30 million kids are now estimated to receive school meals. In August 2020, when the waivers were on the verge of expiring, Representative Bingley and I joined 119 of our colleagues in sending a letter to the Secretary of Agriculture urging him to extend the school meal waivers. Throughout the pandemic, I sent 3 letters and worked tirelessly to ensure every child can eat. Though we were able to secure these critical waiver extensions, the uncertainty caused millions of families and school administrators to panic and stress. Now, we find ourselves in a familiar place where at the end of this month, in just 15 days, millions of children are again at risk of going hungry as school meal waivers are set to expire. Let me be clear. We cannot let these life-saving waivers lapse as the pandemic rages on. I'm working with the Education Committee and leadership to ensure that our children are continuing to be fed. But we can't stop there. We need permanent solutions. As a former community nutrition educator, childhood hunger is an issue I know way too well. That's why one of the first bills I introduced after I was sworn in was the Universal School Meals Program Act with Senator Sanders and Gillibrand. My bill would provide free breakfast, lunch, and dinner to every student and eliminate school meal debt. No child in the wealthiest country in the world should experience food insecurity. We here in the United States must lead to end child hunger here at home and must continue to lead to stop this global hunger crisis. In Somalia, 29% of children are experiencing acute malnutrition. About 7 million livestock in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia have died since last fall due to widespread drought. This food crisis in the Horn of Africa and all parts of the globe will only get worse unless we take steps to stop this catastrophe from taking hold.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.